Good afternoon to Mr. Chairperson, Dr. Lim, and all participants. My name is Rijal Shukor. I'm from IUKL. I'm also presenting on behalf of my supervisor, Dr. Mui Wakian. The title for this presentation today is Entrepreneurial Expectation from Digital Transformation of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises in Malaysia. This presentation will include the introduction part, literature review, discussion, and to summarize and conclude this presentation at the end of this presentation. So as we know, the problem exists in this MSMEs in Malaysia. Actually, the difficulties of them to understand and aware about the potential of digital transformation that would bring to their business organization in terms of digitalization of digital economy, the technologies such as the Internet of Things, data analytics, blockchain, and so on and so forth. The other problem is that in an organization such as MSMEs, there are no single person who actually know everything uh, about everything that also related to technology and transformation. So it is hard to for them to change their culture. Previously, perhaps they are using manual production or sell and marketing their product and services manually. It is difficult to start to alter their mindset and also create new habit toward improvement of their business operation. But it is doable actually. For that, there are several ways of a business leader or MSME entrepreneurs to kickstart their transformation process. In this paper, we are suggesting to use liminal system, which was introduced by Eklund Frick et al. In 2020, where this system is actually segregating a group of employees or talent in the organization into several space or several structure that they can be easily monitored, they can be easily motivated, and also they can be easily appraised on to see how much improvement they are making. The objective of this paper is to increase MSMEs organization know-how and through knowledge channeling and skill upgrading of their overall business entity, including the talent, including the resource that they have toward transforming their business from conventional way of doing business toward a more digitalized and more modern way of doing business. We also hope that MSMEs entrepreneurs, after reading these papers, will understand more and could expect what this digital technology are bringing toward their business operation. We also will be answering question on what are the relationship between digitalization to MSMEs and what the entrepreneurs or the owner of MSMEs could expect from the transformation process. And also, lastly, we can see how MSMEs can harness the liminal space to embrace the change that would lead to that transformational process. And for this, we are reviewing several articles, journals, and some publication from the government to take some information so that we can proceed with the research. First of all, according to Landata and Abreka 2020, there are no definite definition for digital transformation, but actually it depends on the organization itself, on how they describe the transformational process toward their business. And recently we can see so many new technologies, including technologies under the Industrial Revolution 4.0 that bring upon applications such as Internet of Things, database, data analytic, and so many new application that could help business to grow in this pandemic situation. As we can see, also this transformation could benefit SME in so many ways, but for this paper, we are highlighting about the efficiency of the business operation that came abroad upon from the implementation of technology itself. So by having a new technology toward the business, we can see that the market is opening up for them, and they could be more globalized to sell their product or services outside Malaysia, and they could gain more customer base from it. And for digital transformation also could help to enhance customer experience. As we can see that from digital innovation, we can derive so many data about our customers. For example, when customer buy something from us, they will usually key in their name, their data, and we can also see how they are spending their money toward our products, and they also have the chance to give comment and give recommendation for us. From that, we can improvise our services and our product to meet their preferences. So we can also retain them and also gain more new customer toward our businesses. And from all of that listed benefit, there will always be an increasing in revenue and profit for the business above all. So uh, we can we also see that our government are actually giving an effort toward uh, promoting an awareness program about digital transformation for businesses, for MSMEs in Malaysia. Through an analysis done by SME Corp and Huawei Technology in 2018, we can see that most of the business that adopt technology inside their business operation showing the increase in their productivity. What entrepreneurs have to do to embrace this type of transformation is that they need to unite their organization and coordinate their resource quite well, including setting up their talent mindset toward a change and providing devices and internet connectivity for them to be used. And also the leaders actually have to expedite their way of thinking toward a new and wider view, which include technology transformation inside their process of changing. And to embrace that digital transformation, actually, we suggest that to adopt liminal space system, that this type of system actually focus on a smaller group in the organization, such as marketing group, services and manufacturing group, so that the leaders could set up some program for them according to their specialties. For example, when we um, try to ask our staff in marketing department to change their way of to market their product and services from the more conventional way toward a better digitalized way. We have to provide them with knowledge, with skill, and also with the needed device for them to use to enhance their knowledge on that technology. And the process is that a simple three-step process where the leaders actually, first of all, have to motivate their talents to be open to what any changes for their business to capture the movement of the change and the new technology that are being introduced to them. Secondly, the leaders also have to structure and have to guide their talents toward reaching the destination or the goal of the transformation itself. And finally, the leaders can assess the level of assimilation through asking the talent on how they feel, on how they adapt with the new culture and how they can help the organization to grow with it. This paper will be triggering the several parties actually, such as Entrepreneurial Association, government agencies, and several researchers to acknowledge that the fact that this digital transformation exists is to empower MSMEs to be more vigilant, more resilient, and more sustainable toward achieving our national GDP from this year and moving forward actually. And it will also create a notion to urge more studies about digital transformation that would benefit MSMEs in Malaysia as a whole. And we like to suggest that more study could be done to know why some MSMEs in Malaysia that are not being able to adopt and assess this type of transformational process and this type of innovation. And secondly, we like to also suggest more study to be done about data security and data safety, that we can show these MSMEs that the technology are very secure and very user-friendly for them. And as a summary, we can say that digital transformation will increase the productivities of all businesses, including MSMEs, not just in Malaysia, but all around the world. When entrepreneurs have that knowledge and awareness, we can ensure that our national economy will keep on growing, even though this pandemic situation are still here in Malaysia. And lastly, I hope that our government could give more training to new startup and new MSMEs in Malaysia or existing MSMEs in Malaysia about adopting new technologies inside their business operation. And that's all my presentation for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mr. Rijal. Now it's a Q&A. Please unmute yourself and ask. As mentioned earlier, I'm visually impaired, so please unmute yourself and start ask the question. Q&A taking approximately 10 minutes.
Can I ask? Right.
Please.
Okay. So I think it is actually an interesting presentation. So I think looking into SMEs in Malaysia, they are very much actually affected by the pandemic, and moving towards digital transformation, I think this would be a new future for our SMEs. So may I know to what extent that your coverage in terms of the knowledge that you are expecting these SMEs to know, do they actually cover the issues of creating platforms, because this is the new way of doing business. Instead of just selling products, instead of just selling services, do you think that SMEs in Malaysia are ready for platforms?
Thank you for the question. Actually, the answer is that there are so many existing platform that SMEs can use, such as in plug and play situation, whereby they don't have to invest so much on creating another platform for them. For starter, they can use a platform like Shopee, Lazada, Facebook, and YouTube, for example. And then moving forward, they would like they might try to increase their or enhance their way of doing business through business automation or to automated manufacturing, so that they can focus more on the sales and quality of the product, rather than to focus on the human resource type of thing that usually hindering their productivity. So I'm not saying that human talent are not important, but human can be resituated to do some other more important thing, like delivery, like using new technology to help other in services, and so on and so forth. But to the extent, we can say that looking at the business itself, how big or how small they are, actually the bigger the or small the company, they don't need or they don't have to spend millions to create platform for them. We can see now in Malaysia, actually there are several millionaires that are only working or selling the product from home and without any store and something, and they only use Facebook platform, YouTube to sell the product. So they are outsourcing their product to other people, and those people are actually been providing them with quality that they need. So in terms of business, we have to be more open to what B2B situation rather than competing with one another. And the note is that for business to grow from here on toward the future, we have to have the connectivity, not just the platform. We have to know people from the other side of the world and how we can connect or communicate with them. That's how the business will grow in the future, actually. Thank you very much.
All right. What about in terms of, now we are talking about selling products, now we are talking about selling services, and as many other organizations, okay, around the globe, that they start to sell platforms instead of products. So how do you think that the SMEs in Malaysia would be able to cope instead of becoming a user, all right, of the platforms? And now they have to think in another different way, okay, to actually create platforms so that they can sell these particular platforms to other people, so instead of just selling the products, because that's how the trend of digital transformation is taking place outside there.
Yes,
So,
actually that. Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Actually, that is true, actually, because if we want to compete with those big fish, actually is hard.
Okay.
The way to move forward is we can network with our own business community, and perhaps there are one or two business provider inside Malaysia who have that knowledge to create our own platform. For example, we can see platforms such as mudah.com or something like that. They have already been here about more than 10 years. But recently, their progress being covered up by bigger platform like Alibaba and so on. So to revitalize our business in Malaysia, we have to diversify our own business community. We have to know who have that knowledge and who know that way of doing business, and we have to work together. As we can see in SME Corp also, they are providing some platform for this business to grow. So from that, if a community or group of business can work together and create their own platform, that would be very, very good actually. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Okay, still one question is available. So is it audience still have something want to ask today presenter? Okay, looks like there's no question from audience from 4. Okay, now let me move to second presenter, and with the title Aligning Interests Between the Ministry of Higher Education and Public Universities through Contemporary Approach to Strategic Control. Presenter, Associate Professor Dr. Sharifah Norzehan Syed Yusuf.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sharifah.
All right, thank
Please.
you.
Thank you.
Allow me to share the screen. All right. Okay. So basically, all right. Okay, so good afternoon basically to everyone. Okay, may I just mention to you that this particular research is basically part of a bigger study, all right? And our department has actually been engaged by the Ministry of Education to actually look into the financial sustainability of higher education in Malaysia. And along the line, okay, we found that there are many occasions that data are not actually being analyzed, and we feel that some of the behavioral aspect of this particular research need to be taken into consideration as well. So because of that particular reason, that's why my team came out with this particular sharing, which is aligning interests between the Ministry of Higher Education and public universities through contemporary approach to strategic control. As you know, when there are strategic directions that are being formulated, especially by the Ministry of Higher Education, and when it is being cascaded down to the higher education institutions, especially the public universities, it is crucial for them to actually ensure that all these particular strategic plans or their direction to be in line, okay, with what the government wants. So because of that particular reason, and because of what we are actually faced when we did the bigger research, is that there are issues of strategic alignments. And that's the reason why that we decided to share this particular part with the audience. And hopefully, okay, by sharing this, we have more ideas and more ways to actually pursue with this particular study. And according to Nixon and Burns and Johnson et al. And Des et al., okay, and Frigo, strategic control is actually very important because it is actually linking between the strategic creation, all right, execution and the monitoring. And according to Des, strategic control can be divided into informational control and behavioral control. And what this is all about is about doing the right things and doing things right. We always hear this in ethics, but in the context of strategy, we are putting this into the perspective of strategic control, whereby we are looking into how these particular elements of strategic control can be looked at from the implementation of the organizational strategy. Okay, as you, for your information, that based on this particular Malaysian education blueprint, okay, the higher education has already expressed how they want higher education in Malaysia to move towards financial sustainability and not so much relying on the funds given by the government and hoping that some of the parts that the higher education institution in Malaysia can actually generate on their own. The reason why, okay, they start to let go a bit by bit of this particular allocation, because of that government's responsibility is not only for higher education, government's responsibility of giving the funds is also shared with other public activities. All right. So because of that particular reason, we have to think now how higher education should actually think of a way how they can actually generate the income on their own. As we know, we are now facing the pandemic, and between the higher education and the Ministry of Health, there are a lot of funds that need to be actually siphoned to the Ministry of Health. So these are the kind of things that we will be facing in the future. So making the higher education institution to actually generate their own income is now the strategic direction for Ministry of Higher Education. So between both universities and the ministries, they need to actually work towards the same direction. All right, like I mentioned to you, now funds need to be shared, okay? More, and certain ministry needs to actually have more funds as compared to the higher education. So there's a need for both these parties to have goal congruence. So because of that particular reason, okay, the objective of this particular study is to actually explore how a contemporary approach to strategic control can actually be used to align the interests between the Ministry of Higher Education and public universities, and also to explain how public universities progress towards their strategic goals are monitored and intervene when necessary, using informational control and behavioral control, and also stakeholders engagement. So basically, this is our qualitative approach that we use for our methodology by participating into strategic engagement activities. All right, we do observations, and we also have interviews as well. And basically, there are 2 face-to-face workshops that are actually being conducted, and also 3 online engagement sessions at this particular moment. All right, we are actually having more engagement sessions in the future, okay? But this particular sharing is based on what we already had earlier. Okay, based on the findings that we have, okay, this particular study will actually look into more towards the issues and challenges faced by these particular 2 parties. And basically, what we are looking at is that Ministry of Higher Education is the one that has more power, that actually imposing most of these particular goals or directions towards the higher institution. And this is where you see that most public universities, okay, not that they're not happy with the cutting of this particular funding. I think it's more towards, okay, when we interviewed them, it's more towards that they are expressing their anxiety because of the uncertainty, okay, whether the sustainability of the higher education would be there. So because of that particular reason, that's why they are afraid. Because why? Looking at the current funds that they are having, it's okay, some of it are insufficient to cover certain operation costs. They're worried about staff salaries, and they're worried about the QS ranking that they're supposed to be focusing on, and many other issues and challenges that are in their head, which I would say, okay, become something that, you know, may hinder them to actually go in line with this particular strategic direction. Yes, they have expressed their thoughts, okay, how they are worried about it. So that's the reason why most public universities nowadays, okay, you can see that they start to cut. I don't want to mention cutting costs, but it's more on cost savings, okay, which is much more positive in that way, that most of public universities are moving towards that. And in fact, some public universities are already thinking of many ways to generate income. And it's no longer like before that you're only depending on the government funding, but you are also thinking of ways to move forward as well. So basically, these issues and challenges can actually be rounded up into these particular elements. Okay, you can have more basically. okay, because of the anxiety is one of those challenges, financial obligations, reputations that they want to keep, the new role that they have to actually play, okay, and the commitment that they have to put in, quality of education that they have to preserve, and challenging the status quo and cost-saving initiatives. So basically, these are the issues and challenges that public universities are actually facing because of the intention of government to actually cut the fundings to higher education. So when you look into the informational control, the ability for them to actually effectively adapt to this particular environmental change, Ministry of Higher Education have already initiated a lot of engagement sessions. However, this particular session is very much top-down, all right? And it doesn't focus on the whole of the stakeholders. And even in the dialogue session as well, okay, not all key stakeholders are involved, which make it quite difficult in that sense. And with all this particular engagement session, what we found is that every session, it will be participated by different representatives, which actually makes communication between Ministry of Higher Education with the public universities does not actually run smoothly. Every time you have a session with them, you keep on repeating, what's the goal, what's the intention, okay? But because of that particular reason, they don't quite have an effective ways of managing this particular transformation. And what we found as well, that the worry, the anxiety that's brought up by these particular public universities is due to the lack of entrepreneurial mindset that they have, okay? And however, I'm not saying all universities, but some of these universities are quite slow in adjusting to this particular new environment. The lack of dynamic capabilities, and some of them are still with the mentality that government will still be funding them, all right? And the lack of integration as well among all the universities, among all these particular departments in an organization also contribute to this particular doing things right does not really take place in an organization. And there's so much of a top-down culture, okay, that's happening. And some of the rules and regulations also becomes an element that actually restrict them from thinking forward. So in aligning this, okay, from the issues and challenges and how informational control and behavior can actually help in the alignment is that, all right? So in terms of informational control and having an effective communication, it is good that both parties, okay, contribute to this particular top-down and bottom-up communication, and involving several other key stakeholders would also be crucial. Frequent dialogue meetings, and not just depending on an online session, a face-to-face communication would be actually much more important and much more effective as compared to online. And then because of this particular informational control and doing things right, okay, you are talking about making sure that every stakeholders understand, okay, the motives of why the government is moving towards the strategic direction that they wanted to, that is for public universities not to depend so much on the funding from the government. Strategic communication among stakeholders is actually very, very crucial. At the same time as well, all right, creating a new mindset, okay, making sure that representatives from the public universities, especially those dealing with the financial or the fund of the universities, should now shift their mind into becoming more entrepreneurial, and the allocation of funds should be focusing more towards, okay, enhancing or creating new dynamic capabilities, and looking back into the reward system that they are having in the universities, and what restricts them from the information given by the respondents that some of the rules and regulations that are in place actually restrict them from generating more income. And this is because of most universities, when we talk about spending the funds that are being given by the government, they follow the rules and regulations from the Ministry of Finance, and there are do's and don'ts there. And one of the do's and don'ts is actually they are restricting certain way of generating an income for public universities. So that's why we are suggesting that the Ministry of Higher Education and also the higher education themselves, the public universities, need to actually sit together, not just between them, but also to other stakeholders that are directly involved in this particular financial operations, which is the Ministry of Finance. And because when you have this particular stakeholder engagements with many other stakeholders, that's where you are able to develop good governance. All right. So in aligning the interests, it is very important that both sides move towards this same direction, and strategic control via information control and behavioral control basically can help to align this particular interest between them. All right. So the conclusion from here is that, all right, even though strategic control may not be able, because it involves human factors, to a certain extent, human factors issues need to be addressed. And once you have already addressed that, all right, that's why we have the behavioral control just now. By having that, only then it is easier.
Dr. Sharifah, you still have 5 minutes to present.
Okay. Even though, right, that we are talking about this particular alignment between these two particular parties, we are talking about embracing a positive culture, which is actually not found so much among these particular higher institutions, the representative that actually involved in this particular session that we had with them. And when we talk about informational control and we are talking about behavioral control, these two need to go hand in hand. And both parties need to know that, in executing this particular strategy, all right, both parties need to know what are the right thing that they need to do and what are doing things right is all about in the strategy implementation, right? And then if you notice that doing the right thing and doing things right is basically coming also from the area of ethical decisions. So having a strategic control and giving a good coming up with good ethics, that these are the things that need to also come hand in hand. And because of that particular reason as well, strategic control basically promotes strategic communication between the stakeholders. And when you have this particular communication with the key stakeholders, it basically help you to thrash things out. You are being more transparent. All right. Once you are being more transparent, you are showing that you are more accountable in whatever that you are doing, which is the pillars to good governance. And once you know that these are the pillars of the good governance, that's where the alignment of interest can actually take place. From our experience in doing this particular research, right? The issue of miscommunication are the things that take place most between the Ministry of Higher Education and the higher education institution in Malaysia, which is represented by the public universities, right? Because why? Because of the issues that I mentioned to you earlier that would need to actually be addressed. And the lacking part between them is more on the transparency and the accountability part. And because of that particular reason as well, one way how this particular higher education and the Ministry of Higher Education can actually work together and ensure that whatever that is needed is actually being communicated well. So from our main studies, okay, which I want to relate back to this, is that in terms of addressing the financial sustainability, which currently the public universities now are not much of focusing into the integrated reporting part, which should be actually included as part of being accountable to whoever the fund provider is, because under that particular integrated reporting, okay, it shows how these particular public universities need to actually enhance their communication with their stakeholders. So basically, from what we have already looked at, okay, from this particular behavioral approach, that strategic control actually can help universities and Ministry of Higher Education to actually align their interests. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for Dr. Sharifah for the great presentation. Now it's the open to the participant for Q&A. Participants are free to unmute them yourself to ask the question.
Okay. Any questions anyone want to share or to enhance this particular research? I'm welcoming everyone to actually, ask questions.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Pilar. I'm joining you from the Philippines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, Professor Sharifah, Dr. Sharifah, good afternoon and thank you for your presentation. I actually don't have a very clear question because I joined in late. I had problem finding the right parallel link session for this. But I was browsing, looking at the program, and I understand that you presented on this attempt to find a balance, or at least a kind of um, good link between strategies of Ministry of Education and that of higher education institutions in Malaysia. And I guess I just would like to say that it sounds very interesting. I wish I was able to listen to your presentation from the very beginning, but I guess I will have to resort to being provided a copy of your PowerPoint if that is allowed, as I'm sure that will be useful to how we also try to come up with a good relationship or good linkage between government policies and how they are interpreted and implemented at the level of the universities, because clearly translating the policies of the government to how they can be implemented in a more grounded manner is quite challenging. So I look forward to having a copy of your presentation, Professor.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I guess I leave that to you, Dr. Lim.
Okay, thank you for Dr. Sharifah and participant. Okay, now we are moved to the third presentation. The title for the presentation is Motivation, Mobility, and Migration. Internationalization from the perspective of student. Presenter, Dr. Pilar, Precious, Pajayon-Berse. Dr. Pilar?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Lim. Do I have sharing capacity? Can I share?
Yes.
Okay, let me share my presentation for a while. Can everyone see this?
Can.
Yes.
I'm going to, okay. Is that clear enough? Am I also audible? Because, you know, we've been experiencing a lot of rainy days in the Philippines for the past 1 or almost 2 weeks now. So I hope I am loud and clear.
Yes. Yes, in
Okay.
a good condition.
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much, Dr. Lim, for your brief introduction. And good afternoon to everyone. Like what I said a while ago, I am joining you from Manila, Philippines, and it's a good opportunity for me, and I feel privileged to be able to present at this webinar because I teach politics at the University of at Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines, and I really value these opportunities to do or showcase at least or present my work on higher education, and also to learn from other experts and scholars who have interest in the same field. So again, my presentation is on motivations and mobility, internationalization from the perspective of students. So what I'm going to present to you in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be very, very precise with my time. What I'm going to present to you is a very tiny portion of my dissertation study, which I concluded or which was concluded in 2018 and which I defended in 2019. So this is very one of the more interesting parts of my study. So let me proceed. So over the last decade, the processes involving the internationalization of higher education have expanded dramatically, as seen in the various efforts of key actors to increase student mobility, deepen strategic partnerships, and build stronger linkages between them and their global regional partners. Um, at the center of these developments, student mobility remains a dominant indicator or variable that defines the parameters of internationalization. So in the Philippines, there is a lacuna in current literatures that looks at the perceptions of students with regard to their mobility prospects, both for study and for work, and how these prospects lead up to the possibility of migration, especially to strong partners in the Asia Pacific region. Considerations such as quality of education, availability of scholarships, personal safety, and even the possibility of employment require closer attention to understand the motivations or the considerations that drive students to participate in internationalization practices. So I take this opportunity before I continue to highlight a little bit of limitation of my presentation for lack of time, and so that to really pay attention on the study component, no, there will the highlight will be more on the study considerations or motivations, and less, if not totally absent, on migration and work. So I hope you understand that. Maybe I will present it at the other GHEF conferences. So I'll continue. Um, Basically, what I try to answer with this brief presentation are the following questions. I wanted to be able to present this. No, what are some institutional destinations more preferred by students over the others? and what are the factors that help determine these decisions? If not determine, then maybe we can look at looser terms like contribute or influence the decision-making process of students when they arrive at their decision to study abroad. And with the consideration of this pandemic that's being felt in a global scale, everyone, including Malaysia, what are the disruptions? With the disruptions caused by COVID-19 to international education, what additional factors will likely be considered by students that will shape the future of student mobility in the region? So I hope to be able to put some light on these questions. So the study basically did a survey from 462 students in a particular university in the Philippines, and it highlighted the overall level of interest in studying in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and in other regions. So this is basically just a presentation of the breakdown of this level of interest. So basically the questions ask them whether they are interested in a low level or moderate level or in a high level of interest to study in Southeast Asian universities, in East Asia, and in other countries, in other regions. So what were included in the survey were schools or choices from other regions such as North America, South America, Australia, and of course Europe. So basically, this gives us a very diverse level of interest of studying in other regions or countries in different parts of the world. Now, this basically shows the level of interest to study in selected countries. So a portion of the survey asked specifically for very specific interest in these countries. And as you can see, among Southeast Asian countries, one that stood out was the level of interest to study in Singapore. So I just forgot to encircle this part earlier, but if you can see here, that there is a high level of interest studying in Singapore, and then it becomes diverse in different other countries in Southeast Asia. But you can see that there is a significant jump in the level of interest from Southeast Asian countries to other parts of the world, specifically to countries in East Asia, such as in South Korea, Japan, and then to countries in Europe, particularly in Germany, in Italy, UK, and also, of course, in North American countries such as Canada and USA. So, this is just to present to you diversity of interest, and later on in the next few slides, we'll find out what factors probably contribute to this diversity. So what are the main considerations of the students for choosing destinations for student mobility? So the survey included options, namely positive employment, outlook after graduation, the medium of instruction or the language used in the universities, availability of scholarship, cost of living, research opportunities, quality of education, prospect of emigration after completion of studies, housing availability, personal safety, and of course there are other varied reasons. So how does it look like, if we put them or locate them in a kind of chart? So quality of education emerged as that factor with the highest consideration received from the students. It's really, apparently, it really is a dominant consideration among students who are seriously considering studying abroad or who have done study abroad in the past few years prior to answering the survey. After quality of education is personal safety. So here you have your sense of security, whether living in a particular destination country where you are going to study brings you peace of mind and you don't worry about your safety and physical security. And then these are followed by employment outlook, which is the reason why originally the paper wanted to also highlight like the consideration for migration, how this opportunity to study for a lot of students also open opportunities for a migration or working abroad in their destination universities. And then factors such as cost of living, medium of instruction, scholarship, housing availability, research opportunities, and prospect of full-time or full-fledged emigration followed after the first three considerations. So these are the main considerations. So if we sum up, basically, I'm going to skip this for a while. Basically, it's the perceived quality of education received, um, receiving the highest consideration, and then personal safety, and then employment outlook. I must go back to this part that basically lists down the top or summarizes the top 10 country destinations chosen by students, of where they want to go to for their study abroad programs. And from all the countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore is the one that got into the top 10. Of course, you have there Japan, Canada, Australia, and then a lot of countries in Europe. And there could be a good explanation as to why Singapore emerges as the top destination country from among the Southeast Asian countries in the region. One such possible consideration would be Singapore's good standing, at least based on world university rankings. So the factor, or at least the information included or indicated in the study came from the 2018 THE World University Ranking result. And Singapore emerges, at least the top 20 schools in Singapore figured out in the rankings. And then another factor is, of course, Singapore being recognized as the safest country in Asia. And so for this one, I generated the information from the result coming from Global Peace Index of 2018. So these are possible considerations that will help us shed light into understanding why Singapore emerges as a top university destination in Southeast Asia. But in the rest of the region, you have Japan, and then you have South Korea also emerging as a part of the top 10 country destination for students intending to pursue mobility programs outside the country. Okay. Okay. Other factors that were identified in the study that relate to students' interest in studying within the ASEAN region included the following: ASEAN related programs and course offerings of the home university, or the universities where the students are going to come from. And then, of course, you have financial capability or scholarships. This is two-way. The scholarship could come from the university sending the students outside, or the universities receiving the students. So that plays a major consideration in why students would feel interested in studying in a particular university, in a particular
Reconfiguration.
destination country. And then, of course, language, travel to ASEAN region or experience. So it's very cultural in that sense. And then you have socio-demographic factors, basic knowledge about ASEAN, and then perspectives about the region. I
Configuration.
highlighted, oh, how many minutes do I have? Am I still okay?
Okay, still on time.
Okay.
Still have the
I,
time. Yours,
all right.
I think you'll end approximately 1:37, and I will
Oh,
remind you when you still have 5 minutes.
okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lim. I highlighted the elements or factors of language, basic knowledge about ASEAN, and perspective about ASEAN. These are the factors that the study found um, slight and positive correlation with regard to interest to studying abroad. So the study found out that there is a slight correlation between students' knowledge of languages outside what they know, basically that's Filipino and English, to be a, an influencing factor that will make them decide to study in another country outside the Philippines and particularly in ASEAN. Now, there is a strong positive correlation about the basic knowledge of students about the region and their perspectives about ASEAN. So basic knowledge questions asked were basically their knowledge about currencies and capital of each country, where the countries are located. So these are parts of basic knowledge about the region, and then perspectives about the region included questions such as whether they feel strongly affiliated or they feel a strong affinity about them being a member of the region. It also includes their perspective about important issues in the region, and whether they have certain standards that they hope the region would value, or certain issues the region would value. So these are the basic knowledge and perspectives about the region that prove to be considerable factors in how students decide to study in universities in ASEAN. So this is the correlation result between
Sapila,
interest. Yes, po?
5 minutes
Yes?
still left for your presentation.
Okay. I probably have around 6 slides, so I'll try to do my best. So this is the correlation of interest in studying in ASEAN and basic knowledge and perspectives about the region. What it says basically is that there is a positive correlation between interest in studying in ASEAN and basic knowledge about ASEAN. This strong positive correlation means that as knowledge about ASEAN increases, so does the level of interest in studying in the region, at least for this particular population that was surveyed. Interest in studying in ASEAN was also found to be correlated with the student's affinity as an ASEAN citizen. Overall, this signifies that said interest goes up. A sense of affiliation as an ASEAN citizen becomes stronger. The same can be said of one's overall image of ASEAN society, which includes generally a positive image or negative image of the region, which was found to not be correlated with interest in Southeast Asian countries. So, as part of the analysis, data from the survey showed relatively modest interest to study and work in the region overall, except for Singapore and to some extent Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia, because these are ranked better than the other countries in the region. Interest was found to be definitely higher in Japan and South Korea, both members of the ASEAN Plus 3. And then traditional OFW, meaning overseas Filipino worker destination countries in the Middle East, also did not attract strong interest for either study or for work. A common major consideration of the students in deciding where to work or study is the possibility of employment in the destination country. So there's really a good opportunity here to look much more closely on how this interest to study translates in a deeper interest to work in the destination country. The quality of education and working conditions also rank high in the students' decision-making process. These are generally in line with the observation of one key informant who noted that students primarily look for culture, quality of education, and standard of living in their destination countries, particularly for their study opportunities. So, students who held a positive image of ASEAN as a society also reported a strong interest to work in the region, but not as much as to study. By and large, prospect for study was found to be positively correlated with interest to work in Southeast Asia. I have to add this among the analysis because this is also part of the study. Universities also play a key role in promoting student mobility within ASEAN as part of regional integration. For instance, basic knowledge about ASEAN was found to be positively correlated with interest to work and study in the region. The same is true with the students' affinity or sense of affinity as ASEAN citizens. So we have to ask ourselves with regard to the role of universities, how committed are universities, not only in the Philippines, in establishing mechanisms that promote international education, particularly student mobility, including destination countries in ASEAN. Um, and this is going to be my last slide, part of the analysis that I added with regard to this study is uh, the current situation we're all facing with regard to COVID-19. So COVID-19 response mirrors some of the factors highly considered for student mobility and highlight new ones that will likely shape its future. So you have personal safety, which in the context of COVID-19 extends to the safety from health disruptions based on the capabilities of the country in question. Because now these are really the dominant concerns of everyone. How capable are countries outside your home country in handling uh, unprecedented and random disruptions such as COVID-19? Employment, given that thousands of people the world over have been displaced economically because of the pandemic, and then cost of living, which became more pronounced as a concern given everyone's financial limitations due to COVID-19. Lastly, there is digital divide or digital readiness, whichever side of the spectrum a country is in. This factor is expected to take front and center of today's problems surrounding student mobility, but is not actually a new concern and can be seen to take a major role as universities embrace the shift in learning modality as part of the new normal. I end my presentation there. I hope I was able to share something with you that will be useful in your researches about higher education. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for Dr. Pilar. Now is the Q&A section.
Congratulations, Dr. Pilar. All right, I think it's a very interesting one to see how, like, you know, students in Philippines are looking at the prospect places that they want to actually further their studies. And with the pandemic that we are facing now, I think the most important is the safety, definitely. All right, okay, on top of what you have already mentioned earlier on. So do you think that, all right, with this particular new technology and students don't have to actually move from where they are, all right, would that change, all right, their choices of places that they want to actually further their study?
Thank you very much, Professor Sharifah. It's a very good question. You know what? I'll have to admit that I had intended to submit two paper presentations for this conference. The other one would be student mobility and digital divide, but I didn't have time to submit both. But thank you for asking that. Yes, I totally can see that the future of international education would factor in considerably the ability of universities the world over to provide opportunities for student learning or international exchange or international education at the comfort of the homes of the stakeholders, particularly the students. So long as the universities are able to provide opportunities that will promote international education despite not having any physical interaction with the students, that will put them as a front runner, you know, in terms of providing the new face for international education, because we cannot run away from the pandemic. It's here and it is continuously. Every day that passes by, it continuously contributes in shaping a new phase of international learning. So I think that's a very, what do you call it, important consideration.
What about in terms of the funding, the financial, you know, ability of these particular students, even if like we are moving towards the digital education, right? You can actually, you are
Right,
not actually moving from one place to
right.
another, right? Do you think that the scholarship and then the funding of their education still plays in an important elements for them to actually consider as well?
Right. Recent literatures, because there have been a lot of aggressive studies in the past year about student mobility and digital divide, and these literatures I have come across with basically still talks about, of course, the downside of. I mean, let me paraphrase that.
Okay.
Because of this problem that we're facing with regard to student mobility, um, there is this opportunity for universities to present a more affordable, more accessible, more economic
Mm.
opportunity for the students to partake of international education at a lesser cost. So this is what I am saying as a way forward for more universities. We have to acknowledge that without any physical mobility or restricted physical movement of the people, costs have to be adjusted. So that is an opportunity. Whether that will be adopted by universities, because international education is quite costly. That is why scholarships are sought after and very important determining factor for students to study abroad. But with the different format that international education is taking shape, embracing a blended form of learning. Students don't necessarily have to travel abroad to partake of international education. There is that opportunity to make international education more accessible, because at the moment it has this elitist perception. It is not totally accessible by a lot of students. Only students who belong in elite universities or elite groups of communities are find it easy to do internationalization practices. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah. But maybe let me also take this opportunity to highlight a relevant consideration, and that is the problem that digital readiness poses to everyone, especially to students who initially have problems pursuing internationalization because of financial restrictions. But now that maybe everything will be made more democratic and accessible, the problem is the digital readiness of the country and of the universities in their home country. So
yes.
this is a new problem
Mm.
for a lot of countries in Southeast Asia. We are not sophisticated yet in terms of digital education. There are different pockets of our educational system that have been promoting digital education for many years now, but that has not been aggressively pursued and promoted till the pandemic arrived. And now we are in the middle of it. And we're struggling very hard. I can see it in different literatures, different analysis coming from different parts of the ASEAN region. So that is actually a pretty interesting, not exactly problem, but area of development that we can all look into separately, and come together and see
Yes, yes.
how we can all move from here on out as a region.
That's true.
Thank
That's
you.
very true. And perhaps one thing that we may need to look at as well is ethics in education when, everything is already digitized. So perhaps that's the thing that we can actually focus. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Professor Sharifah. I have to remember that. That's true. That would be one of the challenges of pursuing this digital education, how we can tighten our mechanisms for ethical control of content, right? Everything is out there. We have to be careful that while we make everything accessible to everyone and we pursue it, because, this is the new normal, we maintain quality assurance. That's part of ethical considerations. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for Dr. Pilar, a great presentation, and thank you for all participants for Q&A section. Now, let me move to the next presenter. The title for the next presentation is Reconfiguration of the Faculty Performance Appraisal System for Better or Worse. Presenter, Puan Hazila Hashim. Puan Hazila,
Yes.
you can begin your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Lim. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Let me first introduce myself. I'm Hazila Hashim, Assistant Registrar in HR Department in UMT and also a Student Master in UKM. My research title, which I'm going to present today, is Reconfiguration the Faculty Performance Appraisal System for Better or Worse. As a background, performance appraisal, or PA, is a highly controversial among the academics. Reconfiguration of performance appraisal should be undertaken periodically so that the system is improved. In university, academics are being evaluated with various methods, criteria, and processes, including their yearly appraisal, MIRA, and others. All these evaluation methods, especially the yearly PA, requires improvement from time to time in order to make sure it is relevant with the work of the academic and with the purpose of the university. However, reconfiguration of faculty performance appraisal can cause many advantages and disadvantages to academics and also to the university itself. The new improved system based on academic feedback is more suitable and relevant, hence clearer and fairer. But the adjustment to the new system takes a long time to be stable. This presentation is based on part of my master by research work, which look into the PA administered in a public university. This presentation will focus on academic perception on the performance appraisal system known as 5K, which has been used since 2014-2019 in University of Malaysia, Terengganu, Malaysia. For a definition, a PA can be simply defined as a formal and systematic process or activity to monitor, measure, and evaluate the job performance either annually or within a stipulated period of time. The purpose of PA is to improve performance and increase the quality of staff and organization performance. PA is also used for other purposes, for example, for academic appointment, academic professional development, for decision on pay increment, for promotion, for giving recognition, for retention, as well as for succession planning. In some organizations, including higher education, PA is part and parcel of the talent management tool. In the context of UMT have developed a new PA system in 2020 known as RTS system, which is Research, Teaching, and Service, which is also different from the 5K system. A brief about 5K system. Okay, the 5K system represents 5 kefungsian or roles of academic in UMT. The roles are referred to K1, Teaching and Supervision, K2, Research and Innovation, K3, Knowledge and Transfer, K4, Self-Development, and K5, Academic Leadership. So the reason for developing a new system or RTS was based on this issue in 5K performance appraisal. First issue is unclear purpose of PA system. Many, including academic and management, were not clear for the purpose of PA, whether it's just for assessment, meaning it's just for managing the work of academic, or as development and management tool. Secondly, there were feedback from academic that had confusing criteria and sub-criteria, for example, criteria on knowledge transfer, where the glossary was not consistent and change all the time. So they were also unfair and irrelevant target, meaning that KPI was set too high or too low. Also, another important issue is on evaluation methods, i.e. the qualitative method on personality quality that bring the bias or favoritism in evaluation. Beside the quantity method based on output, slowly cause the academic prioritize output to achieve their own target and ignore the spirit of teamwork. As media manager evaluate faculty members, there were issues regarding bias and conflict of interest in assessment process. Some managers were deemed as too lenient and some too strict, and some did not provide any useful feedback on yearly performance. This paper will focus on one of the objectives of the research, which is to examine academic staff perception on the change in the PA system from 2014 to 2019 in one of public university. Also, this is qualitative case study using semi-structured interview with 12 respondents in order to hear their voice and in-depth feedback on the new PA system. The academic were purposely chosen based on their appointment grades from the S45 to VK7 and represent both science technology and science social. Out of 12 represent, there are 2 professors, 4 associate professors, 6 for senior lecturer and lecturer, with half of total is in science and technology and half from social science. Let's go to the finding. Actually, this is early finding that I have got. The respondent will ask about the question, what do you think about the purpose of PA in your career? So the feedback is, from the feedback, 2 teams were identified. One is for the purpose of academics and the other for the university management. For academic, the purpose is mainly to measure their performance, whether they have achieved for KPI for the year, so they can be benchmarked with other academic in their faculty. Some highlighted that the purpose is for career advancement, whereby the academic can use the assessment to decide on their strength in order to focus specific career path. Based on the weaknesses, the academic can decide on specific professional development activities. Needless to say that most the respondents highlighted that PA is most important to academic promotion because academic can only be promoted if they get 80% marks average for 3 years in UMT. Others highlighted that PA can be used to increase or decrease motivation. Some may need to work harder to achieve their target on marks, or others may be more motivated to do work because they receive good assessment and marks. University management use the result of PA for making decisions on ranking activities, meaning through PA, the management can decide on the KPI for the next year so that they can fulfill the ranking criteria and also MIRA. According to the few of respondents, the management also use PA for talent management. Here, management can identify the potential academics to be groomed and also the low performers to be assisted through intervention program. The next finding, a respondent also asked, what is your opinion about component-related criteria, target, and method evaluation? 3 teams were identified with various sub-teams. An important component, according to the respondent, is the setting of target or KPI. They highlighted that the new PA system set KPI based on academic grades or rank. They did this through consensus obtained from academic through roadshow and town hall meeting, and also use survey online platform. The issue with the previous PA is that management seems to decide the target without checking with or reflecting the actual work of experience of the academic. Also, the KPI was set as uniform, meaning that they are not diverse or pitched for different faculty or research institute. The current evaluation criteria, according to the respondent, seems to be fairer and clearer based on each main role of teaching, research, and others. In addition, the evaluation method now includes qualitative measure to support quantitative measure, although the qualitative measure is smaller to avoid human bias in process evaluation. However, the respondent did not raise the issue of quality versus quantity in the evaluation and how these issues are resolved under the 5K system. The respondent also indicate that 5K system still emphasize on the evaluation and recognize of competency, i.e. fulfilling KPIs, and less of professional growth. There's finding in reflecting about the process and implementation of PA between previous and 5K system, the respondent highlight that some aspect has been improved, but as some aspect remain the same. For example, there is now transparent score, meaning that there seem to be fairer system. However, some evaluators go to the process face-to-face discussion, and some still did not meet to discuss performance. In fact, a new highlighted that even if the system is better, the system depends a lot on evaluators. Some of the leaders are considered are not good evaluators due to the lack of professionalism and their biasness. Even when evaluators give feedback, they are too general and do not add any value to academic, especially when academic are not given time to reflect on their own performance and to consider their own strengths and weaknesses. There is a need to improve the feedback process so academic can see the value of performance appraisal rather than seeing it only as getting marks from their superior. For a conclusion, generally, we can conclude that reconfiguration of faculty performance appraisal is the better way to keep it relevant and improve it from time to time. Academic feedback on the system is integral to the reconfiguration process. From the perspective of academics, and this we further validate by questionnaires finding, the 5K system is acceptable, fairer, clearer, and more transparent than the previous system. But improvement are still needed in some aspect, particularly in setting target of KPI, on performance feedback, and the role and the skill of the evaluators. The role of evaluators is extremely important in PA. Their incompetencies in biasness will cause continuous unsatisfaction feedback for professional development. The evaluators and academic must also understand the philosophy and purpose of PA so that the two can fulfill various purposes and become highly relevant in their academic work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you to the presenter. Now I open to Q&A.
Congratulations, Puan Hazila.
Thank you.
It is very interesting one. And when you are talking about performance management, and then I think performance appraisal basically is part of the strategic control that I would say. And I would really wish if you could actually further your study and enhance more on this particular aspect.
Okay.
You can actually incorporate other elements like culture and boundaries. Because what you are focusing now is basically what I can see is from rewards, okay, from the reward system aspect.
Okay.
All right. So basically, when you talk about moving towards a direction and moving towards an academic success, and it's good if you can actually look further into the culture. All right. And then to have on the boundaries. Definitely when we are pursuing with something, we need to mitigate certain type of risks. And perhaps with that particular boundaries, understanding more on the boundaries would actually help you to enhance further this particular performance appraisal, because we are dealing with people. And sometimes there's certain type of culture that we want to inculcate, so that these people actually, appreciate this particular system. So I think maybe be something that you can actually consider.
Doctor, can you explain more about the culture?
When we talk about culture, all right, you are trying to instill into the academics, right? That how important it is for them to look at the elements that you are saying just now as part and parcel of their way of doing things in the universities.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so perhaps there are some shared values which each and every of one should actually embrace.
Okay.
So that they will be able to move towards the same, like I mentioned to you, it's important that people in the university to move towards the same direction. You don't want them to actually go do things in silo, which doesn't help in enhancing the ranking for the organization.
The university.
We're talking about universities, so we are talking about what is important is the QS ranking.
Yes, right now.
So if that particular performance appraisal that can actually inculcate that kind of culture as well, and then yes, there's always the do's and the don'ts that we have to abide to, right? So there are code of ethics that we have to actually follow.
Yes.
Okay? When you put the whole thing together, we are hoping that they can actually help the universities to actually move towards the best ranking, I would say.
Okay.
So maybe it's something that you can actually explore further.
Okay, maybe in my PhD research.
Yes, that's why I see that I think you should consider of pursuing into your PhD. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. That's all, Dr. Lim. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Puan Haliza, for the very insightful presentation. I am very interested my question is actually related to Dr. Sharifah Norzehan's remark just now. I'm very interested to know how does university ranking is there any direct influence or indirect influence on how lecturers or academics are being evaluated under the old or new system? Thank you.
Okay. For your information, in UMT, we also comply to QS ranking, but also focus on MIRA. Okay, and MIRA. So other KPI like Setara or MyMohes or other KPI, we also cascade down into the SKT or performance appraisal for academic, such as internationalization. So we have KPI, student international or lecturer international in UMT. So that KPI cascade down to the deans. For publication, the KPI goes to academic directly. So for MIRA, I would say MIRA will help us a lot to get more funding to develop UMT. UMT is just small university, a focused university on marine and marine biology science. So they have to move further. They have to move fast. And then we need to get the funding. And so we focus on MIRA. So the new, I would say my research is on the 5K system, which is been used in 2014 to 2019. But now UMT have moved to a new system, which is more focused and more focused to KPI, which is directly to the MIRA and QS ranking. So everyone have to achieve the target compulsory to achieve publication in Scopus or Web of Science, everyone. And if they don't achieve that target, they reflect the performance appraisal marks. So when we say the PA marks is reflected, then the other process like promotion or awards also reflect. Okay. Also for the KPI, for the new system, university strategically move the KPI of QS ranking and MIRA into cascade down into the performance appraisal in academic. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Okay.
I do like to suggest that I think because we are very much focusing so much on our critical success factors and our KPIs.
Yes.
And there's always the downside of these particular KPIs if it's not being cascaded well, because we are looking also into the human behavior, the pressure that people are currently facing now with all the continuous online activities.
Yes.
You know? And with the lockdown, things like that, so it does create some sort like a pressure, right? I think maybe the elements of how we should be dealing with the human behavior, the aspect of psychology should also be looked at. So I think, well, is definitely all these things are good. We want to achieve something, but along the line, all right, too much of actually KPIs, I would say sometimes it can be very stressful.
Yes.
Right? Because you have this target, and this has some, and also it may jeopardize as well the ethical values of some of the academics.
Yes.
So much one thing that you want to be in, okay, publishing in certain standards of the Scopus that you might be, you know, I would say publish it. You are willing to actually, I would say, more of a predatory kind of journals that people are so desperate that they're willing to pay as much just to be in, you know, to be in, to have their papers published there. So this is the kind of observations that we are seeing that's actually currently happening among the academics. And I do feel that these are serious issues that need to be focused at as well. Because why? I think if we don't actually have the boundaries in that sense, we might jeopardize the academic quality of an institution. So I don't know whether you agree, but that's from the experience that I have throughout, and from the mingling around with all those people in the academics, you find that these are the kind of things that start to crop up because of desperation.
Desperation, yes.
Because of desperation that you want so much to be you know, to get that particular rewards that you sacrifice a lot of other things.
Yes. Dr. Norzehan, UMT has launched an happiness index survey.
Oh yes, I think not just UMT. I think most universities are actually having that particular happiness index survey. Yeah, even in UITM we have that particular happiness index survey. Yeah.
This survey, because last year it started for the new system RTS. So the new system is more stressed. And after we got feedback from academic, they are very stressed, and they said the new system is very cruel. And then after that, HR department are being asked to to launch a new survey about happiness index, and we found that the happiness index in academic is very low, and they are not very satisfied about the new system. So they also support my research, because they want to the 5K system, which is they are very comfortable with. So they want to the 5K system is maybe come back or adapt to the new system. So it is important, my finding, to have academic in UMT.
Okay, that's good.
Maybe if I may add, Hazila is also looking at issues and challenges, which is not part of the presentation, and I think that the issues and challenges will display the actual situation, the voices, the concern.
Yes.
That I think she hasn't analyzed those data yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you so
very
much for the feedback.
That's very good. That's very, because I think all of us are academics and looking at what's happening nowadays, and people are very much focusing on, I would say, KPIs, right? And some of those particular KPIs being set are ridiculous, and which academics couldn't actually voice out just to follow it. So I think that can actually jeopardize, okay, the future of the academic success. So basically, we are also looking into that. And then, being in academic line for a long time, I would say life now is much more stressful than a few years back.
Yes.
Yes. That's the reason why I'm asking you this, since you are doing on the performance appraisal. So perhaps you can actually come up with something that is very useful, not just for UMT, perhaps after that, okay, not just for your university, but for the rest of the universities to actually follow. Because from our study, okay, in terms of, because what I presented just now is basically part of the whole bigger study where Ministry of Higher Education has already engaged us to look in many things, many factors, right? Not just in terms of the academic success, but also the financial sustainability of a university, right? And we find that there are a lot of behavioral factors that are contributing to a lot of the financial sustainability of an organization or universities, I would say. So I think with what you are having, that could actually complement other universities, because to me, public universities are one. We are all under Ministry of Higher Education. So if there are elements that needs to be shared among all, okay, if there are mechanisms that all universities can actually go along with, I think all the public universities can actually be successful. And basically all the 20 universities could actually be in the top whatever ranking that you're talking about. Because I would say those of you who are in, I would consider you all as the younger generations, right? So you need to develop this particular positive culture. So if not, you will end up as a stressful academics in the future. So we don't want that. What we want is a good academic output.
Yes.
See? So I think what you are doing is very noble. And I think if you are able to enhance that further, that would be very, very good. And I know, I believe that Dr. Norzehan is your supervisor.
Yes.
Okay. So I think this is something that I think a noble thing that you are able to do if you can actually help the whole of the universities in moving towards the direction where, yes, academic output is important, but at the same time, the academics are happy to move towards that particular direction. It may not be easy, but it has to start somewhere.
Thank you, Dr. Norzehan, for your
support. All right. My pleasure.
Okay, thank you for the presenter, Puan Hazila. Okay, thank you to all presenter and participant. Today our presentation will end, but please stay online because we want to take the group picture. So I passing back to Puan Ajira.
We don't have time for another question, do we?
Okay, Ken.
Okay, Ken.
Is that okay, Puan Hazila?
Okay.
I find it very intriguing that it seems that the holy grail of Malaysian higher education is on rankings. You know, I'm not saying this based on research or any facts, just the impression that I got from following the discussion in higher education.
Soalan pula.
And there's also been a camp on or a party advocating on whether we are questioning or asking for us to reflect on whether universities, especially public universities, in the pursuit of ranking, we are contradicting our role in realizing the national philosophy of education. I kind of, have the feeling that, we really need to reflect on that. But I'm also interested to know your opinion, because I think academics are one of the key actor in this. And I think PA is something that is very close to their heart. And I'm sure a lot of, I think a lot of lecturers or academics would agree PA kind of influence their research trajectory, their academic career planning, and what they do, in higher education. Thank you.
Yeah, actually PA is a very important process to all the process in HR for academic or for as Dr. Suhaili said, for appointment, for promotion, all the PA is very important to the process. Okay, so like to the ranking also. So university are moving forward to get the high ranking, to get recognized, to get visibility in the world. So they have to improve themselves, that they are very excellent in academic career. So that's what I think. Sorry.
Perhaps I can just add on. Hazila is a administrative staff who's looking after talent management, yeah, and she's doing this so that she can actually help to improve the performance assessment yearly appraisal better. I think what we try to actually do is to look into the philosophy of yearly appraisal, and we ask about what do they think the philosophy of appraisal, by asking the top management, the middle management, as well the academics. And from there, we can see whether they understood the real purpose of appraisal. And so far, we know that it is understood as an evaluation for getting cemerlang, but it's not for the other part, which is for professional development, is to acknowledge, your weaknesses and your strengths. So hopefully when Hazila gets all these or amalgamate all these different data that she has, I think it will give, it will be very difficult for us to actually really think about giving a proper and overall overview of actually one case study, but still, as Dr. Sharifah says, may be relevant to the other yearly system. I think that's where things are going wrong, when we don't understand the philosophy of a certain system in the university. And I highly recommend in higher education, institutional research is very important. And anybody who has the power, or who's sitting there at the management, should encourage this. Any system that they develop should be followed by an institutional research to actually feed back information, whether the system is good, the system is acceptable, the system is relevant, things like that. So in this case, due to her scholarship, the university wanted her to do something that will give it back to her university. But I hope we can all learn from her process.
Yes.
Thank you, Prof. I think that the discussion or this research is very important. It's a very, significant starting point in two ways. Number one is start looking at, the purpose of PA and the philosophy behind it. And number two, it start, getting the administrators to talk to academics and vice versa. And I think that is the missing thing sometimes. On paper, yes, we have that structure in university, but whether it's really organically, naturally happening, there's a big question there. But then again, number one, I'm not an academic, I'm a student. Number two, I am researching in, academic profession. Therefore, I can't really comment as an academics, but this is the observation that I see happening in higher education these days. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you for all the participants and presenters. Now is the time to have the group photo. Please, all of you, please on your camera.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Before we end this session, so we will take group photo. Okay, please smile. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for all participants
Thanks,
and
everyone.
presenter. Thank you for. I hope to see you all in the next presentation. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Really nice.
Bye.
Congrats, everyone. Hi.
All right.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Puan Saili.
All the best. Looking forward to read your papers or, for your future presentation. Really enjoy that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pilar. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Saili.
Dr. Lim. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, doctor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.